Here we are at the Royal Hospital Chelsea for the Chelsea Auto Legends event. I'm talking with Peter Sutcliffe, former Le Mans driver. Please, what's your experiences of Le Mans, and when did you first go there?
Well, I started my first race in 1963 in an Aston Martin, a Works Project 214 Aston, which we raced successfully as the leading British car until about 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning, and then we were unfortunately disqualified for an infringement that took place in the pits. Then the following year I drove for Scuderia Filippinetti in a Daytona Cobra, quite a dramatic car to drive.
I can imagine.
Quite a devilish
seen them
thing.
out today, and it's
about the fastest brick you could find to drive. But then he kindly offered me a GT40 for the following year, which we drove one of the 289 Mark I GT40s, and then my final year was driving a Works Ferrari P4, like the car behind me here, and with Gunter Klaas, who was another of the Works drivers, of course. And unfortunately we didn't finish that year. There was a problem with the engine, unfortunately, that sidelined us once again about 9 o'clock on the Sunday morning.
Okay, yeah.
So that was a DNF, as they say.
DNF, yeah.
But Le Mans for me was always a great experience. I loved the long distance racing, the challenges of keeping a car going, listening to the gradual sort of degradation of things and how to sustain speed without wearing it out.
Yeah.
And that was what I found I did mostly in my own personal racing career with my own little racing team.
Okay.
And because, you know, racing is very expensive when it goes wrong. If the cars run and you do well, then it's quite an achievable exercise. Or it was then.
Yes.
You know, it's become hugely more expensive over the last sort of 30, 40 years. God, it must be as long as that.
Time flies.
Yeah.
But also,
Le Mans has always had a huge place in my heart as one of the great sporting events in the world, and in the automotive world, one of the just about the top of.
Yes, it is considered possibly the greatest race.
Yeah, leaving aside Formula One, which has sort of taken over, but then that's a a new formula. You see, Le Mans goes back to 1927.
Yes.
Formula One didn't start until the 50s. So they're the new boys, you know. They've just got to get a bit of extra time in.
Okay, yes. They did have some Grand Prix before, but you're right. It wasn't a championship, World Championship Formula One. Yeah. Exactly, you're right. And also the Le Mans cars, of course, relate to the road cars on the whole. That was the basis from which it's grown, and now the prototypes are built to a specific sports car specification, which are removed from the road cars, but the GT category is very much related.
Yeah.
And that reminds me, in fact, it prompts me to this other car here, Fraser Nash Le Mans Coupe, because the P3-4 that you raced is similar to that is here.
Yeah.
The Fraser Nash isn't one that you drove, although this did win its class in 1953. But you were racing Fraser Nashes quite a lot.
I raced Fraser Nashes from 1957 to 1960, actually, when I went into the army to do my national service. But Fraser Nashes were a wonderful privateer's car, and it was the only car I had. I used to go to university in it. I took girlfriends to dances in it. I'd go touring around Europe in it.
Wonderful.
And then you just could blow up the tyres a bit harder and put another set of plugs in, and you could race round circuits for 10 or 12 hours, and the thing was absolutely wonderful and indestructible cars. And I'm not surprised that cars like this, you know, finished at Le Mans and always did well.
Yeah. And the same with the D-Type Jaguar,
Yes.
which you also raced.
Indeed I did. Never at Le Mans, but certainly around all the British circuits in the early 60s.
Yeah.
That also was a wonderful privateer's car, because it was strong, reliable, fast.
Yeah.
Couldn't fault it, and the most beautiful car, the most handsome car really that's come out of Jaguars, I think, of all time. The E-Type's a lovely, you know, sequitur to it, but you know, a D-Type on the road is a perfectly manageable car.
Yeah.
and scaringly fast. I mean, you can actually pass Ford Sierras with it, which I can't.
Well, actually, a lot more than Ford Sierras.
Well, I mean,
considering on the long going, they'll do about 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So, well, obviously, you wouldn't be doing that on the road, of course.
No.
Although in the 50s and 60s, of course, there wasn't restriction. There was very little traffic. So
yeah, no, it was everything seemed to be coming backwards at you when you were on the road in one of those.
Yeah.
Huge fun.
Staggering for the period.
Yeah. And we were all the right age for it too.
Yeah.
It's your reactions were needle sharp.
Yeah.
Your eyes were still pretty good. All your teeth were your own.
Yeah. But then here, but then now today you brought your a Bentley.
Yes, I have.
3 litre.
Yes, I find now my enjoyment in motoring is having a car that really needs driving, where you've got to understand the mechanicals, you've got to have a high degree of anticipation because of the difference in performance between something like a 1920s Bentley and modern traffic. But that's sort of the pleasant challenge that I get out of driving now. I don't actually have a modern car at all.
Okay.
I have the Bentley and I have an old Aston Martin, and that suits my purpose. And an old Land Rover. Between the three of them, I can either drive to South Africa or I can drive to the shops, and that fulfills my motoring needs now. I've been a very lucky chap
to have
driven these wonderful cars when they were, the real thing.
Yeah.
And to find that a lovely show like this has been put together in London, I think is absolutely fascinating and is a great tribute to all the effort that people like you, James, have put into getting it together, getting the cars together. You've got a lovely day.
Yep.
And I hope you're going to have a great crowd.
Thank you very much. But also thanks to you for coming and supporting us.
It's been a great pleasure, and we're going to enjoy all the day. We're going to meet some old friends and probably make some new ones.
Excellent.
Thanks, James.
Okay. Thank you, Peter.
Right.
Bye-bye.